Hello, members of the Wisconsin Annual Conference. I'm Lisa King, the leader of the current delegation to the General and Jurisdictional Conferences. I'd like to start by thanking those of you who've been praying for us delegates in our work over the last year. When we 20 delegates were elected last year at the 2019 Annual Conference, we expected to make a very different presentation to the 2020 Annual Conference. However, like so many other things, those plans were changed because of COVID-19. After 9 months of meeting and preparing, and in the midst of the schedule of informational sessions we were presenting around the conference, the pandemic hit, less than 2 months before we were planning to attend General Conference. General Conference was eventually postponed from early May to August 29th through September 7th, 2021, and will still be taking place in Minneapolis. The North Central Jurisdictional Conference, which was scheduled to meet several months ago in July, has now been postponed to November 10th through 13th, 2021 in Fort Wayne, Indiana. At this time, it's still not clear whether or not the pandemic will allow us to meet in person for either or both conferences. But even as our gatherings have been delayed, work continues. Our delegation has continued to meet monthly by Zoom to keep informed about actions taken by other groups and potential changes coming to the United Methodist Church and our jurisdiction. With the delay of the North Central Jurisdictional Conference, the Jurisdictional Committee on the Episcopacy has been even busier than normal working on our behalf. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize and thank the Wisconsin Annual Conference's representatives who have recently served or will be serving on that committee on our behalf during this challenging time. During the last quadrennium, that was Tom Popp as our lay member and Amanda Stein as our clergy member. Currently serving are Katie Kreis as our lay member and Dan Shireen as our clergy member. And elected to serve over the next quadrennium are Lisa Jones as our lay member and Dan Shireen again as our clergy member. The main task of the delegates to jurisdictional conference is to elect bishops, who are then assigned to episcopal areas by the Jurisdictional Committee on the Episcopacy. This North Central Jurisdiction Committee has recommended we elect only one bishop in the North Central jurisdiction, although 2 bishops are retiring, which will reduce the number of bishops in our jurisdiction from 9 to 8. That means that 2 more episcopal areas will likely be sharing a bishop. Given geography and the comparatively small size of our conference, in normal times there would be a strong likelihood that we would end up sharing a bishop with another annual conference after the next jurisdictional conference. To be clear, that does not mean our conference would merge with another conference, just that we would share a bishop and likely an office and some staff with them. However, given what's happening within the United Methodist Church overall, our jurisdiction is looking at many other possible ways of restructuring. And it's very likely at least the next quadrennium will be a time of transition. And we really don't know at this point what the jurisdiction or even the Wisconsin Annual Conference might ultimately end up looking like. But we wanted you to know that our structure is very likely to be different, perhaps significantly so, than what it is today. As we learn more about possible changes to the United Methodist Church and the North Central jurisdiction, the delegation will continue to communicate with members of the annual conference. We plan to eventually hold additional informational sessions about issues to be discussed at General Conference and North Central Jurisdictional Conference, including the various plans for the restructuring of the United Methodist Church, possibly creating a United States Regional Conference, the proposed new global social principles, and possible changes to the clergy pension system. However, it's not clear at this time whether those informational sessions will be in person, virtual, or both. And the delegation will continue to communicate with Wisconsin United Methodist through the conference website and e-news, including providing information on how to contact members of the delegation. With all the changes happening in the world and in our church, I want to assure you that the Wisconsin delegation is praying for God's guidance in all the work that we do. And we invite you to also pray for us and for God's church. And now, Jenny Arneson is going to talk about another aspect of the delegation's work over the past year.
Hi, my name is Jenny Arneson, and I serve as the lead pastor at the Sun Prairie United Methodist Church and am a member of the General and Jurisdictional Delegation for our Wisconsin Conference. The Wisconsin delegation of the General and Jurisdictional Conferences is excited to announce our endorsement of Reverend Dan Shireen as a candidate for the office of bishop in the North Central jurisdiction. The vote took place at the delegation meeting on November 17, 2019, at First United Methodist Church in Tomah. Dan was the first clergy elected to the 2020 General Conference delegation during our last annual conference session, and he has served on previous delegations to the jurisdictional conference. Dan is a father and grandfather, a narrative preacher, and a poet. He is currently serving First United Methodist Church, Waukesha. He's the chair of the Conference Episcopacy Committee. He chairs the Bishop's Task Force, and he chairs the North Central Jurisdiction Urban Ministries Network. Dan has taught on the faculty of Faith Alive and also on the Wisconsin Conference Institute of Congregational Development. He has served churches in Duncan, Oklahoma, and Wisconsin before becoming the founding pastor of Stillwater's United Methodist Church in Jackson. He served as district superintendent on 2 cabinets before being appointed to First Church, Waukesha. He and his spouse, Julie, make their home in Greendale. While at First Church Waukesha, the congregation has developed into a beloved community of nonprofits that benefits children and families. And they also have become a reconciling ministry in the United Methodist Church. The delegation was impressed by Dan's spiritual grounding and his record of ministry, which affirms all persons. He has a record of transformational ministry in the local church as well as in conference leadership. His commitments are born of a relational theology, and his current work on the Bishop's Task Force is not only working toward full inclusion of all God's children in the life of the church, but is also auditing and impacting systems that exclude. His record of inclusion and innovation is why his candidacy would be timely going into the jurisdictional conference's season of discernment. Bishop Jung, it is my privilege to share our delegation's endorsement of Reverend Dan Shireen as candidate for the office of bishop in the North Central jurisdiction and ask for the affirmation of the Wisconsin Annual Conference.